Hi, this is Gabrielle. I thought I'd try narrating my project for you guys today. For this project, I'll be using a paper from the vintage artistry collection called Laws of Nature. You can find this at the Scrapbook Diaries. It's a 49 in market paper. I'll also be using Chipboard from Dusty Attic. This one is called Geometric Shapes. Here I'm just kind of eyeballing it, trying to decide what section of this piece I'm going to use. I just want a nice long strip for the right side of the page. I'm also going to need a little accent piece for the left side of my page, so I'm just cutting out a little piece and setting it up. I find it gives a nice little balance to add that. Some other pieces of chipboard I'll be adding is a little clock and handle and a title, Love. I think later on I added the word always as well, and that's a Too Crafty chipboard piece. For our background design today, I'm going to be using some Perfect Pearls mica powder. The color I'm using here is called Blue Patina. It's just a powder, and I'm adding some clear water spray here. And I'm just going to kind of paint it onto the page. I'm also adding some of the color on the left-hand side of the page where my little bit of chipboard accent will be. This helps balance the whole look of the page. I decided to add another color of Perfect Pearls. This one is Green Patina. This helps give a nice multi-layer look to the page, so you'll get a variety of color in your background design. After I've dried my color splotches, I'm going to move on to do some stamping. Here I'm using a stamp I designed for 49 in market. It's called Gabi's Pattern Texture Stamp. I'm just using it with some Ranger's Archival ink. This is important to use this ink because later on, if we hit it with some color or paint or water, it won't bleed. I'm just randomly stamping in the areas where I've done a little bit of painting. This stamp is specially designed for background stamping. It has very soft edges, so no matter how much ink you put on it, you're not going to get a squared off edge. You're going to have nice soft edges that kind of fade into the background. I decided I wanted to use an extra stamp, so here I'm also using another stamp I designed for 49 in market called Postcards from Paris. I'm using the script part of the stamp, and again I'm just stamping in random areas around my accent area and photo area. Every once in a while, I like to test out how my photo and my background chipboard looks against the stamping and background area. So that's why you see me sometimes pulling out the chipboard and the photo. The photo, by the way, is a photo of my daughter and her fiance. She's getting married in May, and this photo was taken on their engagement photo shoot. This particular project was going out to a trade show, so I was trying to make sure that the background is nice and sturdy. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking some Aleene's glue and mixing it with some water, and I'm going to apply it to a piece of chipboard that's 12 by 12. This particular chipboard comes with my patterned papers when I order papers from the Scrapbook Diaries. So I sometimes use these cardboard pieces as a nice backer for a layout that I really want to keep as an art piece. The beauty of doing this is that later when you do put some more wet product like paints onto your layout, your whole project won't buckle. You'll have a nice flat surface to work on. Before the glue completely dries and adheres the paper to the chipboard behind it, I'm taking some lace here that I have. This is Prima lace, and I'm just cutting little snippets and I'm tucking it behind some random edges. So I'm just pulling back a little of the paper, put in a little extra glue if you have to, tuck it in, peel the paper back a little so that the lace peeks out. You get a nice kind of a shabby chic vintage look. Now continuing with our background design, here I'm using a 12 by 12 stencil I designed for TCW, that's the Crafter's Workshop. This one is called Mania, and I'm using it with some ultra thick modeling paste. This is also made by TCW. I'm using a palette knife to spread the texture paste, and I'm trying to keep it to the area where I did the coloring and painting and the stamp work. This is my favorite part, where you peel back the stencil and you see the texture you created. Now we're just going to move the stencil over just a bit and be sure to put a little splotch of it over the area where we're going to put our accent piece. Here you can see I left a bit of a splotch, but that's no problem. I just take my palette knife and clean it off. Sorry I'm a bit off camera here, but I'm just adding a tiny bit of it at the bottom as well. You'll want to give your project a good thorough drying before you move on to the next step. So here I'm taking some of the blue mica powder and some of the green mica powder. That was the perfect pearls, and I'm just dabbing it onto sections of my page. Then I'm going to take a bottle of water and just spray the powders. The colors will start running into each other. I'm tilting my paper to let it kind of run into all the little creases we created with our texture stencil. So to continue applying the color, sometimes I like to use a paintbrush to help spread the colors where I want them to be, or just keep spraying the water and move it around until you have the look that you're looking for. I don't put a lot of color in the center of it because I know my photo is going to go over that area, so I'm really concentrating just on the areas where I know will be around the photo. You'll notice as I apply my color that I keep dunking my paintbrush into water because I'm just trying to fade out the color so that it starts from darkest value and goes to lighter value as it moves out. Now I'm going to work on my chipboard. I like to coat all my chipboard with white gesso. I like the look of white chipboard, and I could paint it white, but I find paint sometimes just sort of soaks into the chipboard, whereas the gesso gives it a good coating. You could paint it with white paint after, but I don't feel like that's necessary. I use a sponge dauber to apply my paint. It applies it very quickly. I get my sponge daubers at a local dollar store very inexpensively, but this is, I find, the fastest way to paint my chipboard. As a final touch, something I like to do is apply a little bit of brown chalk ink to my chipboard. This gives it a nice aged look. This particular one is Prima, and I believe it's called Branch Bark. Now I'm just applying some of the leftover Aliens glue I had on my plate, and I'm just applying it to the back of my chipboard, and I'm going to attach it to my project. You may have noticed that my chipboard is upside down. I decided after that I was going to change it around and put the heavier part of the chipboard towards the bottom. Sometimes as I'm working, I adjust as I go along because I think the design may look better another way. So here I'm matting my photo with a piece of burlap. This is a roll from 49 and Market. I just peel off a little bit of the edges to give it a nice frayed look. And I'm attaching my photo with a piece of corrugated card. This is just torn off some packaging. I like to use that because this allows me to tuck other pieces of embellishments behind the photo, such as flowers, or in this case I have that little piece of clock. I don't like to waste anything, so if I'm tucking a clock behind a picture like I am here, I like to cut the piece off because I like to use whatever I've cut off in another area of the layout elsewhere, as you'll see later on. The word tab I'm adding here is a piece from Dusty Attic, and the little clock button here is, I believe, from Lemoncraft. I like to apply a little bit of glue to it, even though it is an adhesive piece, because I just want to make sure it really stays put. Here I'm using 49 and Market flowers. I thought this blue worked nicely with the background colors we chose to use for this layout. Before I add my flower here, I'm adding just a little bit more texture by gluing on a piece of cheesecloth that I tinted with my chalk ink. I played with my title a bit and finally decided that I like the look of putting the one word at the left border and the other word right over the photo. I thought it gave it a nice cohesive look. Something I often like to do when I'm making a floral cluster is to add a twine bow. All I do is loop the twine a few times to make a double bow, and then I like to secure it at the center with a piece of floral wire. Usually I have a piece left over lying around if I'm putting leaves or flowers onto a project. Just put a big blob of glue on and attach it to your project. Before I added my bow here though, I thought I'd add again a little bit more texture, so I'm using a little bit more of the cheesecloth to attach to it. And then on top of that I'm just applying a bunch of flowers. And as I mentioned before, I like to use up the extra little pieces, so here's that little sliver of the clock I cut off and I'm using it on the bottom. I feel like it adds a nice extra little touch to the page. Sorry about the lighting here. I have a stained glass window to the left of me, and at certain times of the day the light pours in and kind of sets off the colors on the page all wrong. If you bear with me, that will be gone in a few minutes. Here I'm just tucking a few loose leaves into my floral clusters just to give it a nice finished look. And to finish my floral clusters, here I'm adding a few little blue buds. This is a cluster I got in a kit that I did for the Scrapbook diaries. I think you can find these at most craft stores. I know I've seen them at Michael's in a variety of colors. So now I'm taking the mica powder again. I'm putting a little bit on my craft mat and adding water to it, and I'm painting in little shadows around my chipboard and around my photo area. I feel like that really helps make the photo pop more and my design pop a little more. So you're just going to paint around areas where you think shadow would be created from your chipboard. When I designed the stencil tile Mania for the Crafter's Workshop, I thought about how nice it would look to put little gemstones on the little cross sections of the tiles. And so here I'm taking the opportunity to pop a few adhesive gems that I have from a dollar store here, and I'm putting them in the little cross sections behind the photo area. Again, I'm using glue on these adhesive gems. I know they do stick, but I just want to make sure that they don't fall off of my project. So I thought I was filming, but I missed showing you here. I added a few green sparkle strips. This is another dollar store product I added. And basically you're done. I hope you enjoyed today's project. I went a little out of my comfort zone narrating today, but I do read all your comments and feedback and really appreciate them. and one of the things I've been asked is if I would consider narrating, so here you go. Thanks so much, guys.